Kemi's hands moved with the rhythm of memory, shaping the wet clay on the wooden wheel with a calm precision that belied her racing thoughts. Her fingers curled around the growing pot, guiding its lip into a perfect curve as her mother, Mama Ronk, tended to the fire that would later harden their work into something worthy of the market. The hut was filled with the earthy scent of clay and smoke, and outside, the early morning sun stretched its arms across the thatched roofs of their village in Ondo State. It was a Monday, which meant fresh beginnings, and maybe, just maybe, another stolen moment with Ade. He always came down the narrow path around this time, riding his father's prized bicycle, its rusted bell jingling like a laugh in the morning air. It was the only bicycle in the entire village, a legend on two wheels, and Ade, with his warm eyes and mischievous grin, was the boy who rode it like he owned the world. But Kemi knew better. He rode it like he was trying to escape something, maybe the weight of his father's expectations, maybe the noise of a future being written for him without consent. And there he was. The bell rang twice, playful. Kemi didn't need to look up. She just smiled, her thumbs pressing gently into the soft neck of the pot as she whispered, "You're late." "I'm early for someone who wasn't invited," Ade called from outside, his voice teasing. Kemi wiped her hands on her wrapper, walked to the doorway and leaned on the mud wall. He stood beside the bicycle, arms folded, a lopsided grin on his face, eyes searching hers for more than greeting. She sighed, pretending to scold him. "You know Mama doesn't like distractions during work." "I'm not a distraction," he said, stepping closer. "I'm motivation." He wasn't wrong. With his simple blue shirt rolled at the sleeves, collar frayed from use, and the glint of sunshine bouncing off the bicycle handle, he looked like something out of one of Kemi's daydreams. She remembered once sketching him in charcoal behind her mother's back. Him on the bike, flying through palm-lined roads, free. That was the kind of freedom she craved too, though hers was shaped like art school and city markets, not rusty chains and spokes. Ade stepped even closer now. Their shoulders brushed. Her heart responded like a drum to the wind, quietly at first, then louder. "You came for clay again?" she asked, voice softer. "I came for the artist," he replied, his voice dropping low. Kemi looked away quickly, cheeks warm. The closeness between them was familiar, yet every time it flared with new electricity. Ade never said too much, never too little. But when he looked at her, really looked, it was as if the world stopped spinning and waited for their next breath. "I want to take you somewhere," he said suddenly. "Where?" "There's a hill. Behind the cassava fields. Nobody goes there. You can sketch. I can exist." She laughed. "You existing? That sounds dangerous." He tilted his head. "Come with me, Kemi. Just for an hour. The clay can wait." Dreams shouldn't. There was something in the way he said dreams that made her pulse skip. She looked back toward the hut. Her mother was humming, her back turned. The fire glowed strong. The pot could wait. "Fine," she said, trying to sound unaffected. "But if Mama catches me?" "She'll thank me," Ade grinned. He helped her onto the back of the bicycle. Her arms slid around his waist instinctively, her chin brushing the curve of his shoulder. The air was full of red dust and excitement. As they pedaled through the narrow bush path, trees bending like gossiping neighbors, Kemi felt something dangerous stir within her, joy. Freedom. A kind of love she was too young to name but too old to ignore. When they reached the hill, the world felt wider. The village below was a patchwork of rooftops and roads, life happening in slow motion. Ade spread a wrapper for her on the grass and sat beside her. They didn't talk for a while. She sketched. He watched the sky. Then he turned to her and said, "What if this is all we ever have?" She met his gaze. "Then I'd make it count." He leaned in then, slowly, as if afraid to wake the wind. Their foreheads touched first, breath sinking. She could smell the faint trace of soap and sun on his skin. His hand rested gently on hers, grounding her. No kiss passed, but it didn't need to. The moment held more intensity than lips could carry. "I'd build you a studio," he whispered. "If I had the bricks." "I'd paint you into the sky," she whispered back. "If I had the colors." They stayed like that, two young souls, clay and chain rings, caught between tradition and desire. And somewhere down the hill, the fire still burned in the hut, waiting for its pot to return. The market pulsed with life like the beating heart of the village, each stall its own rhythm. Children darted between woven baskets of yams and piles of tomatoes, women negotiated prices with practiced intensity, and goats weaved through the chaos like sacred mascots. Kemi walked beside her mother with a basket of pots balanced against her hip, her eyes darting from face to face, searching. Not for customers but for a boy with a bicycle and a gaze that made her breath catch. Mama Ronk, stern as always, didn't miss a thing. "Stop looking around like a lizard in the sun," she muttered without looking at her. "Focus. These pots won't sell themselves." Kemi nodded, muttering an apology. But her heart wasn't in it today. Ever since that afternoon on the hill, Ade's words played on repeat in her mind. What if this is all we ever have? The way he said it, like time could slip between their fingers without warning. They set up near the okra cellar, laying out their smooth, burnished pots in a crescent on the mat. Customers came and went, admiring the craftsmanship. A woman with a baby strapped to her back bought 2 water jars. A trader with a deep voice haggled over a cooking pot, finally giving in with a reluctant grin. Mama Ronk handled the transactions. Kemi watched the road. Then he came. The bicycle creaked as Ade dismounted near the mango cart, his eyes finding her instantly. He wore a brown shirt today, freshly washed, and had dust on his sandals. He didn't approach immediately. Just stood there, pretending to inspect the mangoes, the corners of his mouth twitching in amusement. Kemi couldn't help it. Her lips curved in response. "Go and fetch more change from the woman who sells puff puff," Mama Ronk said suddenly. Kemi startled. Now, before your eyes fall out of your head from staring." Blushing, she obeyed. Ade followed at a distance. When she reached the puff puff woman's stall, he joined her, his voice low. "You look like your mother was born with eyes in the back of her head." "She might have been," Kemi whispered, laughing. They stood close enough for their shoulders to touch, stealing warmth like it was a secret. His fingers brushed hers when he handed her a kobo coin to pay for the snack. It sent a ripple through her spine. "I have something to show you," he said. "After the market. Will you come?" She hesitated. Mama would be tired by then. She could offer to carry the pots home herself. "Where?" she asked. "A surprise," he said, eyes gleaming. She bit her lip. "Okay. But just for a little while." Later, after the market quieted and the last basket was tied shut, she slipped away. Ade waited near the palm grove, his bicycle leaning against a tree. He took her hand gently, like it was made of clay too. They walked instead of riding. The path wound through narrow trails, past the stream and beyond the village's edge. Finally, they arrived at a clearing where red earth formed a natural bowl. In the center was a low bench made of stone and wood, and scattered around were his sketches, of bicycles, of trees, and of her. Kemi gasped. "You drew me?" He nodded, nervous. "I can't shape clay, but I wanted to capture you anyway." She sat touched. Then leaned toward him, voice barely above breath. "You already have." The sun dipped low. Shadows stretched. In the stillness, his hand found her cheek. She didn't pull away. Their lips met, tentative and soft. A whisper of a kiss, filled with unspoken promises. "This is real, Kemi," he murmured. She nodded against his chest. "I know. And I don't want to lose it." But love, like clay, is fragile before the fire. The week after their kiss, the rains came. Heavy and sudden, drenching the village in thick sheets that turned footpaths into red rivers and left potters struggling to dry their work. The firewood became too damp, the air too heavy, and the clay refused to harden. Kemi sat in the hut, her fingers sunk in a half-formed vase, her mood as gray as the clouds. Mama Ronk moved about in silence, slicing cassava by the door, occasionally glancing at her daughter with narrowed eyes. She hadn't said much since the market, but the stiffness in her voice said enough. Rumors had found their way to her, about stolen moments behind stalls, about laughter and sketches, about a bicycle ride no one could prove but everyone talked about. "Kemi," Mama said finally, "is there something you want to tell me?" Kemi's hands paused. The clay was cool, malleable, forgiving. She wished her mother's tone were the same. "I spoke with Ade. That's all," she said, keeping her eyes on her work. Mama Ronk made a sound like a scoff wrapped in a cough. "A boy whose father's goats own more land than your whole lineage? You think he'll marry a potter's daughter?" Kemi's fingers tensed. "He hasn't said anything about marriage." "Exactly." That night, Kemi lay awake, the mosquito net brushing against her skin, her mind refusing rest. Ade had been distant lately. He hadn't come to the hill. He hadn't shown up at the stream. She tried not to take it personally, but it felt like the silence of someone holding back. The next day she found him. He was sitting under the mango tree by his compound, drawing in the dirt with a stick. His bicycle leaned beside him and used. When she approached, he looked up, startled. "You disappeared," she said. Ade rubbed the back of his neck. "My father called a meeting. With Chief Olanrawaju." Kemi's stomach tightened. "The land chief?" He nodded. "He wants to merge families. They offered farmland." If I marry Chief's niece. The words fell like hammers against her ribs. You said you wanted to build me a studio. I still do. Then why are you even considering? Because it's not just about me, he burst out. My family has debts. My father's pride rides on that bicycle and promises made before I could speak. If I refuse, we lose everything. Kemi took a step back. The rain began to fall again, light at first, then heavier. She didn't move. Her wrapper clung to her skin. So that's it? She asked, voice breaking. You'll let someone else choose your life? Ade stood, his chest rising with heavy breaths. What do you want me to do? Fight, she whispered. Fight for me. But he didn't respond. She turned and walked away, each step heavier than the last. Behind her, the bicycle remained silent. The days passed like heavy mist, slow, silent, and clinging. Kemi didn't visit the hill. She didn't pass by Ade's compound. Even when she caught sight of the bicycle parked under the mango tree, her feet moved the other way. She threw herself into the clay, shaping, firing, glazing. Her fingers worked fast, but her heart stayed bruised. She dreamed though. Late at night, when the lantern burned low and the coals crackled like whispers, she imagined a studio of her own. A wide, sunlit space where her sketches could stretch across walls, where her pots could line up like centuries of her imagination. In her mind, she and Ade sat inside it, laughing, dreaming, kissing. But reality was sharper. Mama Ronk watched her closely, pride and fear warring in her eyes. Kemi had overheard her speaking to a neighbor. She's becoming a woman now. And women get hurt when they dream too far. Those words stayed with Kemi, like stones in her pocket. One evening, a messenger arrived from town. He wore a faded tunic and carried a letter wrapped in plastic against the weather. It was addressed to Kemi. She opened it with trembling fingers. It was from the Art and Culture Foundation in Acure. She had applied 6 months ago, sending sketches and photos of her pots through a teacher in the next town. They were offering her a scholarship, a year of mentorship, materials, exposure. She couldn't breathe. What is it? Mama Ronk asked, frowning at the trembling paper. Kemi handed it to her. For a moment, her mother said nothing. Then she nodded slowly. You're going to leave me too, ABI? Like your father did. Tears filled Kemi's eyes. I'm not leaving. I'm growing. That night she walked to the hill. The grass was damp. The stars shimmered like silent witnesses. Ade was already there. He stood up when he saw her, something desperate in his expression. I heard about the letter. My father told me. She nodded. You should go, he said. She didn't expect that. I thought you would try to stop me. If I did, I'd be no better than my father. They stood close again, but something had shifted. Not distance. Not silence. Something deeper. A crack in their innocence. I'm scared, she confessed. So am I. He reached out, holding her hand. Then let's be scared together. Even if far apart. She leaned her head on his shoulder. Promise me something. Anything. Don't marry her. Not for land. Not for goats. Not for anything. He didn't speak right away. Then, I promise. The hill watched them, quiet and eternal. And the fire in her studio, still only a dream, flickered brighter in her chest. When morning came, it carried with it the scent of wet earth and new beginnings. Kemi packed her things slowly, methodically, as though each item tucked into her raffia bag held a story, a heartbeat. Mama Ronk hovered at the doorway, arms folded, eyes moist but stubbornly dry. You must not forget who you are, she said. Kemi paused, her hands clutching the folded wrapper Ade had given her weeks ago. I won't. Don't return here with air in your head and no fire in your hands. They embraced stiffly at first, then with the full weight of women who had only each other for years. When Kemi pulled away, she saw the fear hidden behind her mother's eyes. But also pride. The road to Acure was bumpy, and the bus reeked of petrol and sweat. Kemi stared out the window, replaying the night at the hill. Ade's voice still echoed in her ears, I promise. She believed him. She had to. The promise was her anchor, even as her world shifted beneath her. The foundation welcomed her like a rare jewel. The compound was wide, filled with young artists, old mentors, and endless possibilities. She was given a small studio space, a shared room, and access to paints, brushes, tools, and an ancient wheel twice the size of her village one. Days passed in a blur of color and dust. Kemi lost herself in her work. She sculpted women with thick hips and proud faces, bowls etched with her village's motifs, and clay portraits of memories too strong to keep inside. She wrote to Ade. Once. Then twice. No reply. She tried not to let it stain her days, but it did. When she opened her email and found nothing, she sculpted harder. When another boy in the program, Sei with his curious eyes and soft laughter, offered to walk her home, she refused. Not because she didn't want company, but because her heart was still tied to a promise made beneath the stars. One afternoon, while displaying her pieces for a visiting donor, Kemi overheard a conversation. "That's the girl from Odoi. The one whose boyfriend married into the Olanrawaju family." Her hand froze mid-sculpt. She turned slowly. "What did you say?" The woman and in turn blinked. "It's just a rumor. One of the staff is from your village. He said Ade had his introduction last week. For land." The words sliced through her like a broken shard. That night, Kemi didn't eat. She didn't speak. She didn't sleep. She walked to her studio at dawn and sculpted something dark, something fierce. A figure with chains on its feet and wings on its back. She titled it Betrayal. She sent no more letters after that. But when she lit the kiln, her tears fell into the fire. The skies in Odoi hadn't changed, but Ade felt like he no longer belonged under them. Ever since the ceremony, the weight of the land he'd inherited pressed on him harder than the expectations of his father. The deal had been done, palm fronds exchanged, colonnettes broken, names recited before ancestors and witnesses. Yet his chest felt hollow, like something vital had been taken, not given. The girl Bossied was kind. Pretty even. She had the laugh of someone who had never been denied anything in her life, and the silence of someone who never questioned why. Her family's land bordered his father's. The union made sense to everyone. Everyone but him. Each day he found himself cycling past the old hill where Kemi used to sketch. He'd pause there, resting on the handlebars, wondering if she had carved their initials into the stone like she once said she might. But he never checked. He couldn't bear to find them. His nights were worse. He'd dream of her walking away from him in the rain, her voice soft and sharp, "Fight for me." He hadn't. And now he lived with the shame. Letters sat on his table, unopened. Her handwriting. The curves of her words like clay in his mind. He didn't open them, not because he didn't care, but because he didn't know how to face them. What would he write in return? That he had become the very man she feared he would? One afternoon, his younger sister, Dunny, walked into his room with fire in her eyes. "You're a coward." He looked up, startled. "Excuse me?" "Kemi came here with dreams, and you folded yourself into tradition like wet yam leaves. You love her. I've seen it. We all have. But now people laugh. They say she's sculpting her pain while you plant cassava on stolen joy." Her words stung more than he let on. "It's not that simple, Dunny." "It is," she said, crossing her arms. "You just made it complicated." Later that night, Ade walked out alone to the mango tree, clutching one of Kemi's letters. He opened it under the stars. Her words danced on the page. "Ade. I saw a bird today, wings speckled with clay. It looked like freedom and mess all at once. Like us. I want to believe you're still holding on. That this thing between us meant something real. But promises fade, don't they? If you've changed your mind, tell me. If not, fight. I'm still building. But it's hard to build when the foundation shakes." The letter slipped from his hand. He made a decision. The next morning, Ade walked into his father's shed. "I'm not marrying Bossied," he said. His father, stunned, turned from the bags of grain. "You've already accepted the dowry. Then return it. Or keep it." "But I'm done." Voices were raised. Plates were broken. But Ade didn't flinch. He walked out with only one thing in his hand, the bicycle. And on his back, a satchel full of broken promises he was ready to mend. The road to a cure was longer than Ade remembered. The bicycle creaked beneath him, the chain occasionally slipping, but he pushed forward, sweat pouring down his neck as midday sun blistered the red earth. He had no map. Only the memory of her voice and the echo of her letter in his chest. He reached the city at dusk, a chaos of yellow buses, market stalls, and honking horns. People looked at him strangely, dust-covered, tired, determined. He asked directions until he found the gate to the Art and Culture Foundation. He wasn't allowed in. Not at first. Only staff and registered fellows, the gatekeeper said, unimpressed. "I need to see her. Kemi Ajayi. Please." The man crossed his arms. "You and every other wide-eyed boy." Ade stood his ground. "Tell her Ade is here. She'll know." Reluctantly, the man walked off. 10 minutes felt like hours. Then Kemi appeared. She hadn't changed, yet everything about her had. She wore paint-stained jeans and a loose top, her hair wrapped in a patterned scarf, her fingers smudged with charcoal. She walked slowly, uncertainly. Ade? He stepped forward, suddenly shy. I broke the promise. But I came to fix it. Kemi didn't speak right away. Her heart warred with her mind. But she saw the dust on his face, the sincerity in his eyes. You left her? She asked. I never chose her. She stared at him, trying to read the truth. Let me show you something, she said. She led him to her studio. On the shelves were pots, bold, fierce, beautiful. In the corner stood the sculpture titled Betrayal. He lowered his head. I deserve that, he said. And more, she added. Then softer, but you came. They stood close, not touching. Not yet. You'll have to earn me back, she said. I will, he whispered. Even if it takes the rest of my life. Days passed. Ade remained in the city, staying with a cousin in town. Each morning he'd show up outside the foundation, waiting. Kemi didn't always let him in, but sometimes she would come out and they'd walk. Slowly the ice between them began to melt. He helped her build a display for her upcoming exhibition. He fetched water, carried sculptures, listened as she vented about deadlines and critics. One evening, under the glow of paper lanterns, she invited him inside. I'm scared, she admitted. What if you change again? I've already changed, he said. You changed me. She reached for his hand. Then stay changed. That night they sat together, sculpting side by side. No kisses. Just shared clay, shared breath, shared dreams. Kemi's work stunned the city. Critics praised her use of village motifs, her bold lines, her emotion-soaked forms. But the centerpiece stole everyone's heart. A life-sized sculpture of a bicycle made of fired clay, its wheels broken but its frame strong. She titled it Return. Ade stood beside her during the exhibit, not as a boyfriend, not yet, but as someone who had ridden through his shame to stand by her. At the end of the night she kissed his cheek. Thank you. I should be thanking you, he whispered. They began writing letters again, though they lived in the same city. It became their ritual. Each letter was a love poem, a confession, a question. Kemi, when you think of home, do you still see me in it? Ade, you are my home. The hill. The fire. The clay. Their relationship grew quietly. No grand declarations. Just letters and lanterns, honesty and effort. Kemi returned home for a weekend. Mama Ronk embraced her tightly, inspecting her from head to toe. You've become fine, she said. City hasn't spoiled you too much. Kemi laughed. It's made me stronger. She told her mother about Ade. About the exhibition. About her plans to open a studio for village girls to learn pottery. Mama's eyes gleamed. Your father would have been proud. And Kemi, for the first time, believed it. With funds from the foundation and support from the village council, Kemi returned months later to launch the studio. Ade stood beside her as she cut the ribbon. Girls flocked to the clay like bees to honey. Kemi taught them not just how to mold pots, but how to shape their futures. She caught Ade watching her one afternoon, his eyes soft. What? She asked. He smiled. Just thinking how lucky I am that you waited for me. She smirked. I didn't wait. I worked. You just caught up. He laughed. Fair. One evening the kiln flared too hot, threatening to crack an entire batch of student pots. Kemi panicked, unsure how to balance the fire. Ade stepped in. Let me try. Using what he remembered from her teachings, he adjusted the airflow, feeding in dry wood slowly. The pots held. That night she kissed him under the stars, a full kiss, no hesitation. You saved them, she whispered. You saved me, he replied. They stood at the top of the hill again. It was dusk. Ade pulled out a small woven band. No gold. No diamonds. Just threads. But it's from me. To you. Kemi took it. Slipped it onto her wrist. I don't need gold. I just need truth. He held her hand. Then let's build a life. Studio by studio. Pot by pot. She nodded. Yes. But let's make it beautiful. And breakable. And brave. Years later, children in the village speak of two lovers who built a world from earth and fire. Kemi's studio thrives. Girls who once watched from the trees now mold their futures with stained fingers. Ade repairs bicycles for villagers now. But his favorite job is being the man who delivers clay. They live in a home they built together. Simple. Bright. Smelling of smoke, color, and dreams. On their wall hangs a sculpture. A girl with clay on her fingers and a boy holding a wheel. Together. Not perfect, but shaped with love. Fired by choice. And forever set in clay.